Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healthy Body and Happy Mind series. And today we have Ajay from India. Are you in Mumbai or Delhi right now?
No, I'm in actually not even Mumbai, Delhi. I'm in Gurgaon. It's
Gogan.
satellite city. Yeah,
Okay,
satellite city
okay.
to Delhi.
Okay. So actually, you probably, I'm not sure you remember Anga's interview. Ajay is actually Anga's father, and Ajay had been practicing and teaching yoga for a long time, almost the same time as I've done. So Ajay and I are both in our 50s. While I was busy working as an engineer in Vancouver, Ajay is a busy professional with his own business. And almost the same time in our mid 50s, we have both sport injuries. And we have both tried different things. And at the end, it was yoga that actually worked for us. So, because of our personal experience, we actually started a very similar path in how we get into practicing yoga and then eventually teaching yoga. One thing that it really struck me about Ajay is that as an Indian, he's very open-minded. Like not only did he learn the traditional Indian yoga practice from different schools, he also like one of the first yoga teacher in India that learned Yin yoga and brought it back to India. So Ajay, tell us a little bit about your experience about Yin yoga in the West where you learned and when you practice it in India, how did that work? And what was your experience when it first started?
Uh, Prema, see, Yin Yoga is when you say Yin Yoga, then the yoga is already there. So it's common to both terminologies,
Yes.
Hatha Yoga or Yin Yoga. My story started, like you just mentioned, with injuries. And at that time, I had just, in fact, it had been just a few years I had been practicing Hatha Yoga, classical Hatha Yoga, from one of the prominent Indian yoga schools. And it led me to study and research more about the restorative practices, the benefits of restorative yoga. Because I was under immense pain, even after practicing classical yoga. And that is when I discovered Yin Yoga. So it was unheard of in Indian yoga circle. I'm talking about 10 years back. And this led me to research, and I went to different websites and how different kinds of methodologies of teaching, understanding yoga, not just classical methods. And this brought me to my first teacher and friend, and she was one of the primary students of Paul Grilly, who's considered to be the father of Yin Yoga. And when I read deeper, I realized that he himself was a Ashtanga yogi. That was, again, classical school of yoga in India. And this somehow reinforced my confidence that tradition and modern science could see. Yin is not modern. I won't say it's modern. It's a Yin attitude. It's the approach how you would say you practice yoga. And this was quite when I went to the teachers training. This actually happened. It was a Western concept per se, but Yin yoga is actually a Taoist, is Eastern principle. And it was highlighted by Western teachers, by the way. So yes, East meets West. And this is what prompted me to study Yin Yoga. And this is how the journey started of Yin Yoga.
Okay.
And it was very interesting because it fixed my problems. I mean, the physical problems at least. And then it always happens, it starts at the physical level. And then as we realize the actual layers, the residues are latent, and it's not just at the physical level. And yin yoga was a very good practice to highlight that new knowledge. Actually, yeah.
It actually leads to my second question, because I was going to ask that your approach of teaching yoga, you teach a classical hatha yoga, but with a yin approach. So I really think this is a really nice way to into how we emphasize the restorative, purificative benefit of hatha yoga. So with that in mind, what do you think are the type of student that would be most benefit from the approach of the yin approach of the traditional classical yoga?
Okay, the type of students, let's to be very specific, students like me who are restoring themselves, who've been through injuries, who are in their, I mean, it's for everybody actually. Let's not classify the age or the type of people or the mental capabilities or the physical limitations, etc. Coming back to your question, it suits all types, but I would encourage beginners and also people who are trying to restore some physical ailment, like back pains, knee pains.
Yeah.
A lot of it helps a lot with restoration of the body.
When I had my back pain, which is how I started doing yoga, I did a lot of yin yoga in Vancouver. And I remember one of my first class in the Shivananda system, Swamiji has, because I actually went to him with a back pain. My back pain flared up again, and it was so unbearable. I need to like have like painkiller that injected into my spine when I was before I saw him. And then he was saying, okay, we just going to breathe and hold your posture with support. And I was like, oh, that sounded like yin approach. So I think even Swamiji, he totally understand the benefit of like easing into a posture with support. He's very, very gentle in his approach when it comes to injuries. So I think there seems to be some commonality about how we approach the classical yoga with this restorative approach. Now, coming back to, you've been teaching for like over 10 years, much longer than me. And you mentioned that at some point you were teaching group classes as big as like 75 people in like a massive hall, which is very typical in India because the classes are very big. And over the years, now you have starting to evolve as your teaching skill and as well as evolve as your teaching style, that you have now choose to really focusing on one-on-one private classes. So tell us, how did you come to that, and what was your motivation from a student point of view?
Okay, Prema, it's a very interesting question, and I have a lot to say about it. I'll try to be as brief as possible because this subject is very interesting to my style of teaching, my studies, which I continue, and it's been very meaningful to always discuss this particular question. As a teacher, I wouldn't say I'm a teacher. I'm always a student first. And the word teacher itself, like you mentioned, Swamiji, your teacher, he's our teacher, both of us. He's Swami Govindananda. Now, I remember when one of his, when I was in one of his trainings, he mocked at the word teacher.
Yes, he does.
And it made a lot of sense from that day to me. So I generally restrict from using the word teacher for myself most of the time. But yes, as a common way of communicating, it makes sense to use the word teacher. Yeah. I would say yoga practitioner, but when it comes to business, then yes, you have to say yoga teacher. It appeals. Okay, smaller classes vis-a-vis large groups. When I was teaching large groups, as a teacher, it is like, it's like really lifts you as far as your profession goes. It's very uplifting. You have so many numbers, the class is filled. I mean, it gives you the initial pump, and you get the, 50% of the job is done just before the class starts, because you have a studio that is whole occupied. I mean, all the mats are, we had to, and few classes, in fact, we had to lay more mats, we had to open out, we had to roll out more mats. Okay. That was one thing that was that time. But I noticed that during teaching and practicing, because on certain days, I was on one of those mats while other teachers taught. That was the system. That is how the civil system works. And at times, I couldn't relate to the teacher. That led me to thinking, some of the students in my class might or might not be relating to what and how I taught. Even though the system was a dialogue. I mean, it's all instruction-based teaching. I mean, in the civil system, let's refrain from naming systems. Most classical systems of yoga in school and Indian yoga schools work like that. They're led classes. So I came to realize that an introspection, Swadhyaya, led to understand that maybe we need a different class on a different day and for a different student. So it comes to basically PPP model: person, practice, and the purpose. So this PPP model comes from my different teacher from another tradition. And this led me again to study in another school. And this led to the third and another one. And then obviously Yin Yoga followed. And I studied with a lot of Western teachers, anatomy, etc., and philosophy. And it was basically the realization that we don't, I mean, it's not one size fits all. Yeah? And then what about the relationship between the teacher and the student during those 60 to 90 minutes? Yes, we always have time before and after class, but what at that time, when you're on the mat and you need some feedback from the student as a teacher, if I'm going right or wrong, if you're enjoying the class or not, if you're here for the intended purpose, your particular need, you came in for a class. And vis-a-vis the student, I mean, the student is always looking for your attention at times, whether he or she is moving in the right way, breathing well.
Yes.
So larger classes, yes, were kind of a limitation to that introspection, which I did from time to time. And then personally, I also felt over time that one-on-one teaching was how it was taught in the beginning, many years back, centuries back. Yoga was always practiced and taught one-on-one.
Yes.
And that helped me to decide finally that I should stick to one-on-one or maybe very, very small, limited groups and workshops. And by the way, on a lighter note, it makes more business sense as well.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
because I like to add one more thing.
Yes.
As a teacher, as an effective teacher, and especially at our age, my age, your age, one of my teacher friends, he's a trainer too, and we had a discussion in the evening. And he asked me how many classes I was teaching, and I asked him as well. And he was like a teacher trainer. I mean, not just asana teacher, but he was like a communicator. He taught you how to communicate. And he had a great influence on my becoming a teacher. And he said, effectively, you cannot teach more than 10 to 12 classes in a week. if you need to be an effective teacher. So that evening was another pointer to that direction, that you have to limit your teachings as well to be effective, to reach out. And that's why I just lightly mentioned the financials, because then if you are restricting yourself to just going on the mat or leading a class to 8 or 10 classes in a week, then yeah, you better keep your reserves, your energy, your self in shape and effective, your stamina.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
then you want to reach out. Yeah.
I heard that very similar number from another teacher as well, because and two other teachers from India as well, because they said that in order to be present for the students, for every hour you teach, you better practice 2 or 3 hours on your own before you teach. And with that calculation, to teach 10 hours a week, I need to practice 30 hours by myself. So that is a 40-hour work week, right? So actually, I have the same plan as to work on myself, so I could be there 120% for the students. And I do feel the big difference if I'm rushed during to the class, or I'm actually be 100% there. And as a student, you can feel the difference from your teachers too, right? And I think this is a traditional approach, and I think this is also a very good approach. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. So for those people who want to get in touch with you, we will have your Instagram and website posted down below, so people could contact you from the Golgan area. I understand that you're also a very busy businessman doing a lot of traveling around the world, so people could always catch you at one of your other travel trips when you are traveling, also doing retreats. So thank you for your time, and I hope that we will practice together, maybe in Thailand or maybe in India
Very
at some point.
Very soon. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so
take
much.
care. Bye bye.